Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. My name is Marv Fice Jr. This is the Become the Podcast. How do you become anything? You dream, you declare, and you commit, and success is your next breath. So I'm on the phone with my good friend Blake. Blake texted me sometime last night and said, let's do a podcast about all the NBA off-season transactions, free agent news, and stuff like that. So we're going to get after it. And so this is just me and my homeboy doing what we do throughout the day, throughout the week with another guy who's always too cool for school, Andrew Patrick. But we typically just talk about basketball. We send each other memes of gym shoes or players or whatever, just anything that interests us, which is typically comic book characters, shoes, and basketball players. And on occasion, there might be a musical artist in there a little bit. But we just send each other a meme and to say thoughts. And then we'll all chime in on it. And so this is what we're going to do with the basketball piece. And so, Blake, you there?
I'm here.
All right, so Blake is here. And so how you want to do this, Blake? Do you want me to just hit you with like a transaction and then just kind of let you go, let you get after it, or do you have some? Go ahead.
I don't have anything, but I would like to make sure that we touch on like both the basketball aspect, but also kind of the social aspect in terms of like kind of what you posted last week about, especially people not wanting to compete, just wanting to win.
Okay. Well, let's
I really want to expand on that, especially with the Damarcus Cousins stuff. Like that stuff is driving me nuts.
All right, so let me touch on that, and then we'll hit up, and then we'll go into Damarcus Cousins. So I'll talk about the that post, and then that'll be the segue into the stuff that's been going on with the Warriors and Damarcus Cousins.
Okay.
Cool. All right. So last week or sometime, maybe I forget when I posted it, but I had a post about Michael Jordan, the Wizards days. And a lot of times when people talk about Michael Jordan, especially a lot of the on TV personalities, the second they talk about Michael Jordan, the Wizards days, is always a joke, or they like to ignore or discount that period in time as though it ever existed. Like it was so embarrassing and it was so beneath Mike. And I've always appreciated that period of time because it showed a lot of courage. Number one, I like the fact that Mike didn't have his jumping ability, his explosive first step that he had for the bulk of his career. He had to operate on being more experienced and being crafty. So I always like the fact that Mike could just give you 20 plus points off of mid-range jump shots, fadeaways, and then working off the ball. I always thought that was cool that at that late age he was still able to be effective. But then as I started thinking about that period in time, I thought about how competitive Mike was. And you always hear stories about Mike being so competitive, but I think nothing exemplified Mike's competitive spirit more so than his time with the Washington Wizards. Here he is operating on one leg, doesn't have his crew with him, didn't have the Horace Grant, didn't have Scotty with him, didn't have Dennis Rodman with him, didn't have any of the guys that helped him win championships, definitely didn't have Phil Jackson. And here he is playing with an organization that hasn't had a ton of success, and he's out there competing at the 3 and at the 2 against guys during a period where that position was pretty intense. So you had Vince Carter, Michael Finley, Kobe Bryant, Tracy McGrady, Ray Allen, Eddie Jones. Am I missing anybody else?
Probably, but not anybody that I can think of.
Okay, I just named at least 6 or 7 premier 2s and 3s, right? That were tearing it up. And the only person that was on the West Coast was Kobe Michael Finley. So he had to see Vince Carter.
Was Ray Allen West Coast or East Coast at that point?
He was still Bucks.
Okay.
So you had to see Ray Allen 3 to 4 times a year. You had to see Vince Carter 3 or 4 times a year. You had to see Tracy McGrady 3 or 4 times a year. You had to see probably Eddie Jones was with Miami Heat, probably around that time. So you had to see him, or he was with Charlotte. You had to see him 2 or 3 times a year. And then you still had to see Kobe. You still had to see Michael Finley. And I'm pretty sure we're missing some not they might not be an elite 2 and 3s, but
where was Stackhouse at the time?
Oh, well, Stackhouse was playing in Detroit, and then he played 1 year with Mike.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So because
Hamilton was just like getting in
and that's
to the league with that point when he was playing with Mike too.
Exactly, and that's when we got. That's how the Pistons got Rich Hamilton, and that's kind of started the second iteration of the Bad Boys era. But anyway,
that was kind of the end of Stackhouse's career, wasn't it?
No, man, Stackhouse.
Was he like rocking and rolling? Or did he get hurt? Because why didn't the Wizards make it the second year?
It was just probably. I mean, well, first of all, Stackhouse was an all-star for the Pistons. Stackhouse was so athletic, he was still participating in dunk contests to kind of give you an understanding of just how athletic he was. Stackhouse came in 95. So we're talking 2000, 2001. Stackhouse has only been in the league for about 6 or 7 years, and he was only in college for 2 years. So this dude is pretty young, but I think
the second year he was with the Wizards, he only played 26 games.
Oh.
That's why I didn't make it, because I was like, man, with him in his prime and Mike, they should have made the playoffs.
Yeah, and both of them.
But that makes much more sense.
And both of them were pretty good. I mean, Mike was better off the ball, but he still, Jerry Stackhouse was still a part of that Carolina way where you were a complete player. You could you could score, with the ball in isolation situations. You could play off the ball, quick catches and scores and all that stuff. So they'd have been a good fit, a good 1-2 punch. But at the end of the day, Mike was willing to go back and compete against those guys. And it wasn't about winning. It was about competing. And those guys learned from Mike. All those guys, the majority of them, were willing to stick with a team with the exception of Vince Carter. Once he left Toronto, he kind of bounced around a little bit because he went to Jersey, he went to Orlando, and he went to Dallas, I think, kind of in search of. But most of those guys were willing to stick it out and figure it out with one organization. They weren't all about just go to this team and join this juggernaut. And really, that wasn't even a thing to do back then. But Mike was willing to say, you know what, I'm not going to join a juggernaut. I'm not concerned about winning the championship. I just want to compete, and I want to put myself in a position where I can compete against the best, not be teamed up with the best. And so I think that might be. And so there was an appreciation. There's an appreciation there that I have for Mike, and I was kind of communicating that. And so it seems like that's kind of where you got up in arms, or you got a little annoyed with the Boogie Cousins transition or acquisition. So talk to me about it.
Well, my thing. I have so many thoughts about this, but my thing is one. The overall theme is I think he just wants a free championship.
Yeah.
I just think he wants to walk in, and no matter whether he plays well or plays terrible, they're going to win the championship anyway.
Sure.
And he knows, and I think that's weak. I think that's soft, and I think that it is a direct kind of translation to what you were talking about in your spiel about the difference between wanting to compete and wanting to win.
Yeah.
It's like a recess. You know what I mean? Like sometimes when you're a kid, you just wanted to be on the stacked team so you knew you could win the whole time and stay on the court.
Yeah.
It's kind of, that's the kind of thing I think it is. And then also, I just think he's just really, really stupid for doing that because, sorry, somebody's at my door.
You fine.
Because financially, it's just such a terrible move. This man is making $5 million this year.
Yeah.
Right? He's got a torn Achilles, which at least half of athletes who have had a ruptured Achilles have not come back the same, correct?
No. The only person I mean, Rudy Gay had an injury, and Rudy Gay looks pretty good.
But not the same.
I don't even know if you can say not the same, because Rudy Gay he's probably already 10 plus years in the league. He came out, so I don't know what Rudy Gay would look like if he didn't have it. I wouldn't imagine he's participating in dunk contests or jumping like he did in year 3, 4, and 5 or whatever. But he still looks pretty good, all things considered, when you consider his age and where he's at in his career. But it's him, and then they also talk about Dominique Wilkins too, because Dominique Wilkins, I think, came back from that. But Dominique Wilkins was putting up, and this is a sneaky little thing. When Dominique Wilkins came back off the ACL injury, I think he was playing for the Spurs, and I think that season helped them get Tim Duncan.
So wait, so he had Achilles or an ACL?
I'm sorry. He had a. I thought he had a. No, he had an Achilles injury.
Okay, so you can count. So my point is, you can count on one hand how many NBA players have come back from an Achilles, torn Achilles, and been, not a shell of themselves.
But this, right? Hold on. But this is the point I'm trying to make. I think Dominique Wilkins was putting up good stats on a bad team.
Okay.
Because I think that year is what led them to getting Tim Duncan. So they were probably like, "Hey, Dominique, shoot the ball some more." So although he put the numbers up, it's probably like if you give anybody, even coming off of an injury like that, if you give anybody the opportunity to shoot, especially somebody who has the good scoring instincts like Dominique, they probably would have done the same thing. So we can't measure that him coming off of the injury quite as much because he was on a bad team. But go ahead.
Okay, so he's making Damarcus Cousins is making $5 million this year.
Yeah.
And it's been reported that he passed up 2 years, $40 million with the Pelicans.
Yeah.
And I've heard rumors, I don't really know if they're true, that he passed up 3 years and $60 from Boston.
Wow.
So you're going into this year making $5 million, basically saying, I won the championship, and if I get hurt again and my career's over, I'm cool. I'm good.
Yeah.
Like, the financial mistake that he's making, like, his agent must be just having a conniption.
Go ahead.
It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense for you, like, and I don't know if he has a family or just his long-term financial security. Why on earth you would pass up $40 to $60 million for 1 year, $5 million, and a free championship?
I think they're playing a long ball game. I think what they're doing is really, really strategic. I think to have him go play for the Golden State Warriors gives him an opportunity to ease himself into the season, right? So there's a couple of things that can happen. Number one, he can re-engineer his identity. Okay, so he can go to the Warriors and become a team guy, to become a good cheerleader when necessary. He can, once he gets back on his feet, he can play one-on-one basketball because they got so much talent on the perimeter that it's hard to double them, right? So there's no pressure, really. There's no pressure on him. And again, he gets an opportunity to ease into the season, meaning if we don't see him until February, it's not like he comes into February and now he's got to be an impact player playing with the Pelicans, because now he's a big part of what they do, right? And when things don't go right, he's going to get blamed for it. And when things don't go right with his game, he may look really, really bad. But now if he's playing, easing into the season, he's playing, let's say, 20 minutes to begin, or like say 18 to 20 minutes with the Warriors, he can ease into that role. Not a lot of pressure. If he's just setting screen and rolls, picking and popping, occasional post up, and then as he gets better and better and better, or more strong, he can take maybe a more premier role as a second string scorer, right? They put him out there with somebody like Clay. They operate like this inside-outside type of tandem. And now they give him basically a whole year, the rest of the season to get into the playoffs, become a force, but it gives him an opportunity, again, to kind of resurrect his identity, because I think if he were to go to the Pelicans and it not go well, and him not look good, it's going to be ugly. But if he does the same thing for the Warriors, it doesn't look as bad. If he's really, really good, he can probably stay another year, And it's easier basketball and it's less pressure. And I think once he leaves there, there's this notion that he might be a changed man. And so I think he's betting on himself for the long term in hopes that if he does what he's supposed to do, he can get to that max contract level maybe in a year or so.
I'm just saying that the risk, I don't think the risk is worth the reward. I think he could have done the same thing in New Orleans. They won a playoff series without him, so they could have survived 3/4 of the season without him.
Yeah.
Okay, he comes back, he eases his way in, and he makes $35 million more dollars.
Sure.
$35 million.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and you have the extra year of security. And if the Boston thing is true, then he's definitely off the hook, because talk about another example of what you're saying, a way to ease your way in and play in a great system for a great coach with a lot of talent around you and make more money. Like, I just don't get it. I really think he wants the free championship. You know what? I think he beat Dwight Howard to it. I think Dwight Howard was thinking the same thing, and now he's like, dang.
Yeah.
Because Dwight Howard, that's what would have made me really mad about Dwight Howard, is he would have went in there and everybody been like, oh, Dwight Howard's changed. Maybe he was a winner the whole time. Now he's an NBA champion. No.
Well, I definitely think that what you're talking about goes back to our original premise of, for this podcast, in that what do you value more, competition or winning? And so in this situation, the win is definitely being, is given more weight. So if I get a championship, now I can go chase his money. It's kind of what Kawhi's doing now. I think I was listening to Charles Barkley, and he said guys typically come into the league wanting to prove themselves. And then after they prove themselves, they want individual accolades. So all-star appearances, they want, all-star NBA recognition. I was first team, second team, third team, player of the year, defensive player of the year, all that stuff. He said then after that, then that's when people start wanting, the team success. You know what I'm saying? And Kawhi got his team success early. He got a championship and he got a Finals MVP. So now, wanting to stay with the Spurs or even go to a contender, or that's not really important. It seems like, especially if you want to go to the Clippers, considering where they are right now. Now it's like, I already got my win. I already got my individual recognition. Now I want to get my money. And I think Cousins is kind of doing it slightly different, where he's saying, okay, I already showed that I can put up numbers. I don't know how much individual recognition he's gotten, but he's thinking, if I can get a championship.
He's been All-NBA.
Okay, so he's been
All-NBA. He's been Olympian. He's been All-Star.
Okay.
I mean, he's had plenty of individual accolades.
So he's thinking now, okay, so I did that. If I can get a championship, then I've got it. Like, now I can just go I can possibly be like Dwight Howard and not necessarily be moved from team to team the way Dwight Howard's being moved, because Dwight Howard's being moved from team to team. Like, he goes one place and they don't like him and they want to move him. But he can I want to go over here, sign a 2-year deal, make my money, go over here, 2-year deal, make that money. Unless, of course, he can, again, resurrect his image and then get, the max contract, which I don't know if he'll be able to get that, considering his health history.
Yeah, I just think that what Cousins is doing, and I honestly think LeBron started it all with these super teams, is going to trickle down, man. You look at Duke next year. Duke's got the number 1, the number 2, and the number 5 ranked high school players in the country going to Duke next year.
Yeah.
That never would have happened in our day. Never.
No.
There is no way. The number 2 guy would have been like, no, I don't want to go there because the number 1 guy's going there. I want to get my own team over here.
I actually thought it was going backwards. I thought that, with the Kentucky thing, everybody wanted to go play for Kentucky. So everybody wanted to go to a heavy hitter. And then a lot of kids wanted to play with each other, especially when LeBron went to Miami. I thought it was happening.
No, because, Duke is just out Kentuckying Kentucky right now.
Well, then I know, but it seems. But look, you had Markelle Fultz play for Washington.
Was he that big of a deal out of high school, though?
I mean, he was the number 1 pick. So
I think he was a surprise. I don't think he was that highly touted in high school, but I could be wrong.
But my point is, I felt like
I may be thinking of Trae Young. I might be thinking of Trae Young.
Trae Young. I mean, but it seemed like a lot of these guys who they're all getting recruited by the same schools, like the top tier talent, all of the American players in the probably top 10, top 15 in the league, draft picks in the league. All the American players are being recruited by all the same schools. And you started seeing guys going to not necessarily obscure schools, but they started going to different places. Now, everybody wasn't going to the same school because you started to see this narrative where guys were like, yeah, I want to just kind of have I don't want to share the ball. I want to have an opportunity to have a major impact on the game, right? Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, and so I started to see it. And so you're telling me, because I don't watch a lot of college basketball, but then you keep hearing this narrative that because of Coach K's involvement with USA Basketball, he was the head of that ship in terms from a coaching standpoint, getting access to all these kids when they're in high school, which is funny. It's funny that there hasn't been a violation of some sort.
There have been rumors, but I mean...
But I
feel like he's on such high ground that even if he was doing something wrong, that nobody would want to catch him.
Because usually, just recently I was at U of M and I proposed a program that would engage the community with U of M athletes through diversity, equity, and inclusion awareness, right? And they told me that they probably couldn't do the program because it would be in conflict with NCAA regulations. And so, like, if I'm doing something with high school players and I'm speaking or doing this work on behalf of the University of Michigan, that somehow, even though I may be dealing with athletes, but I'm dealing with them in the subject matter is diversity, equity, and inclusion. They told me you can't do that because there's somehow something might be able to go on in which U of M gets an upper hand on the recruiting process. You feel me?
Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
So if it's that tight, and you got to engage high school athletes under these circumstances, right? If it's that tight that I can't even go talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is a buzzword, I think, all across corporate America and definitely in higher education, then how is it that Coach K can have all this access to these players? Like, that's got to have that has to create an advantage. And maybe, like you said, it's Coach K, it's Duke, and there's no one kind of does anything or says anything because on that level everybody's probably cheating. So it doesn't really kick up as much dust as it probably should.
Well, then also he's doing USA Basketball and not in affiliation with Duke University. He's just doing it as
there you go. That's it. You got it.
That's the difference. And also, I mean, it's the USA representing their country in the Olympics, so like any advantage that he's getting from that, they probably aren't going to say much because he's kind of doing a service.
You got it, Blake. He's doing it. It's as simple as that. As long as you're doing this as Coach K and not as Coach K, head coach of Duke University, you're good. Like, that little loophole probably is not really little. It's a gigantic, huge loophole, but it makes all the difference in the world. But I would imagine that that's why he's getting those kids. And I mean, they've been producing pros for a long time, but I would imagine that if you want to play for the U.S.
different.
Yeah,
it's different now. Hey, let's switch gears.
Yeah.
Let's switch to your main man, your boy, Paul George. Is this the opposite? Is he wanting to compete, or what? Why do you think he stayed?
So it's funny. Marv asked me about this morning, and I'm conflicted in my opinion, but I'll be brief so I can let you chime in. So on one end of the spectrum, I'm kind of pulling for Paul George because it does. I don't know if the NBA low key on the low negated that trade or that switch over from OKC to LA. I don't know if there was kind of one of those things that they did back in the day with Chris Paul and the Lakers, or if he really, really doesn't want to play with LeBron. Because there's one and I think you said this in our I forget what in our chat. If he plays with LeBron, he's going to get all the blame if things don't go right. Because LeBron doesn't get any blame, right? He really he didn't get any blame, and LeBron's figured this out. LeBron can put up 25, 8, and 8 in his sleep, and if he goes hard, he can give you 30, 10, and 10. If he just puts forth the effort, right? LeBron is always going to give you the numbers. He's going to give you the assists. He's going to get people involved. He's going to give people open shots. And LeBron is never, ever going to get the blame unless he misses an open shot or he decides not to shoot for the last 5 minutes of an overtime game, something like that, right? Mm-hmm. So the only people that are going to get all the blame, because LeBron is so great and he's so awesome and he's the heir apparent to Mike, right? Paul George is going to be the person getting the blame. So now, Paul George, the last game of their closeout series in Utah, he shot 16 shots. I think he made less than 3 shots. I think
it's worse than you think. I think it was like 20 shots and he made 3.
No. I know he took 16. I saw the numbers. But I don't think he made. Let's say let's go on the high end. I don't think he made more than 5 shots. Now,
no, I know it was brutal. It was really brutal.
Now his buddy Russell Westbrook, he shot 43 shots. When things don't go right in OKC, they blame Russ. When Paul George can't get going, they blame Russ. When Carmelo Anthony can't get going, they clown Carmelo Anthony, but they blame Russ because Russ because Russ holds on to the ball. He doesn't move off the ball well. He doesn't create better spacing for the other guys to operate. He plays the type of ball where once he passes it to you, you better shoot it. And it's like everybody has collectively agreed that Russell Westbrook is really hard to play with, and he might be the real reason why we know why KD left. But he's the reason why KD left. So in everybody else's mind, although he's a great individual talent, he's not a very good team talent, right? So I think Paul George is saying, if I still over here in OKC, I don't get any blame. He didn't have that great of a season. He wasn't on any of the teams, first or second or third team. His numbers dropped off the second he had to play defense and put the ball in the hole. And even in the last game of the year, where he scored took 16 shots and only made 3 of them, he didn't get any of the blame. He didn't get any blame. I don't even think he had a great series. But I
think people know who he is. I think that's part of it too, though.
I don't know, bro, because when these sports personalities talk about Paul George, I mean, they're talking about him like, man, what it'd be awesome if Philadelphia could get him. Man, he'd be really good playing alongside LeBron. Like, he gets so much love. I don't know. But I think, and so my whole opinion is, I do think this move speaks of a guy who maybe has some unfinished business, decided he wanted to give it another go. But I think he knows it's easier to play in OKC along Russ, because Russ takes so much of the pressure off. And maybe he already knew that. I don't know if you got this news today, but he maybe already knew that Melo wants out.
Well, yeah, I think the Melo thing, that's fantastic for them. And I would hope that he would have known that before he made that decision, just because I would never want to play with him.
Who, Melo?
Melo. He's done.
Yeah, he's done.
I think, side note, I think they should go after Kevin Love. You know, Kevin Love and Westbrook played together in college.
Yeah, but dude, he wasn't Westbrook then. He was probably.
No, but at least there's that rapport there where they know each other. It's not like, and he's used to being third fiddle.
But that's the thing. I think he needs to go somewhere where he knows the point guard is going to give up the ball and play off the ball. Like, he can go somewhere where, honestly, maybe like Portland. Go somewhere where the point guard is comfortable enough to give up the basketball, and you got guys that, because those guys are playing off the ball, that gives him an opportunity to not only get assists, be a playmaker, but it gives him a little bit of space because those guys can space out the floor with their perimeter shooting. And he then has an opportunity to, create and score. Russell, unless he decides to play off the ball and be more of be a facilitator at times, if every time he comes off the pick and roll and he passes it to you, you got to shoot. And then if they run a play for, let's say, Kevin Love, and Russell Westbrook goes to like the furthest corner to the timeline and just stands there, I don't know if that's a good fit. I feel what you're saying, how it could be a good fit, but I don't think he wants to do that again, because that's kind of how LeBron was. A little bit.
I don't know. I'm a huge Kevin Love fan. I think you know that. I think it'd be a great fit just because I think you have a little bit of that toughness with Steven Adams, so Kevin Love doesn't have to be like the tough guy.
Sure.
He can be on the perimeter. He can pick and pop. He can move, and he's not called on to kind of guard, the Damarcus Cousins and the Anthony Davises of the world.
And
I think that if Westbrook is going to pass it to you off the pick and roll and he's expecting you to shoot it, Kevin Love is that dude. Kevin Love's going to shoot it.
Sure, I get what you're saying. I don't know, man.
Back to Paul George.
Yeah.
Back to Paul George. I think it sounds to me that from what I've been listening to and reading, it sounds to me like this is an off the court relationship thing with him and Westbrook. They're just boys.
It sounds like that too.
And I love that. Where Paul George could have went wherever he wanted. He could have went to Boston. He could have went to Philly. He could have went to LA, and he chose to stay in a small market and play with his friend. I think that's cool, and I think there's a little bit of competitive aspect to it too. I think they were garbage last year. I think they look back, and they should look back at that Utah series and think, how in the hell did we lose to them?
They got beat by a rookie.
By rookie. And
they got whooped.
It was terrible. It was terrible. And I would just want to see them get rid of Melo, maybe pick up a couple more role players and see what they can do, and see if Russ can adjust, because that was a bad look for Russ last year too, man.
Well,
he shot way too many threes. He was shooting so many threes. It's like, dude, if he would have just driven and not shot half of those threes, they win that series.
Or just play, learn how to play off the ball. Learn how to play off the ball. You know what I'm saying? I get one of the things that frustrates me so much when I'm watching people play, even pros. A guy will be at the top of the key, right? And there'll be a guy on the wing, and the guy drives with his right hand, and the guy's on the right wing. A lot of times, that guy would stand there on the wing. He's supposed to slide. You know what I'm saying? He's supposed to slide. Now, shooters know that. Your shooters know that. So, Clay knows that. Corver knows that. Or they do a good job of reading the defender, figuring out what the defender doing. Did he turn his head? Did he? They do a good job of figuring that out. But a lot of players don't. And
that's a huge Spurs thing. And all the players that you named have played under a Spurs system. Even Corver in Atlanta.
You're right.
That was a Spurs system. That circle movement, you remember that? That's the term that they use for that. The Spurs circle movement is the best you'll ever see. Anytime I talk to my players about circle movement, I'm like, watch the Spurs. You know who's the best at is Danny Green.
Yeah.
Danny Green will be at the top of the key. Somebody will drive left, and he'll be in the corner before that. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And you're right. It's just something that they don't do. I will sympathize with them a little bit. The court is so big in the NBA that I'm not sure that they always have to do that, because their releases are so quick and their spacing is good enough. But somebody like Westbrook would have no clue how to do that off the ball, because he never has to do that.
I know. I think if he would just play off the ball a little bit, if he learned how to play off the ball a little bit, Because I mean, you would imagine. I'd imagine he takes shots, like catch and shoot shots, right, in the off season. I'd imagine he does that.
But if you watch him, he's a much better catch and shoot 3-point shooter than he is off the dribble, which is typical. But he's terrible off the dribble shooting threes.
Yeah, he never puts. Some people say that he jumps so high, like he jumps so high that now he has to jump that high every single time to make a shot. And shooters like I came up in an era where you have to elevate on your shot, right? Well, now they're saying you don't need to elevate. So let's say, for instance, if my vert is 35, right, and I'm trying to jump between 33 and 34 feet every time on my shot in order for it to go in, over the course of the game, I get tired. Now that vert isn't there. So I want to shoot my shot around 20 feet because I can do that even when I'm tired. So you watch guys like
20
Stephen.
inches, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry, 20 inches. I'm sorry. If I'm jumping that high, I should be in the Olympics or something. But
yeah, don't shoot jump shots.
Yeah, but
just go dunk it every time.
You watch somebody like Stephen Curry. He's not getting high off the ground. You know what I'm saying? But he can get away with shooting long bombs because he's not jumping that high. He's not relying on his jumping ability to shoot shots where I think Russ does. And over the course of the game, he gets worn down, he gets tired, but he's not going to stop shooting. But he's jumping so high off the ground that it's got to be that high of a vert every time in order for it to go in. But I hope it'll be interesting to see what they do now that they got Paul George locked in. I've heard the same things, that they're really buddies, they're really good buddies, and they got like a friendship. I think Russ really respects loyalty, and for Paul George to want to stay, like, you have Russ's full attention now. You know what I'm saying? And then on top of it, now that Carmelo Anthony is going to go, I forget how much money he's making, but he's making a ton. He's making a ton.
It's like 25 million, I think.
So now they can possibly
7.9.
Yeah. So let me see who they're interested in. So now they got an opportunity where they can possibly get, some more help, some really good help.
That's a lot of cap space. I mean, I could see them signing somebody, one or two players for 1-year deals, and then waiting for next summer to sign somebody else big.
Yeah, they got to get somebody at that 4 spot. They need either somebody at the 4 spot, or they need somebody in like a Paul George-esque type of player that can come in and either score or facilitate, like kind of Paul George can do, where he can run the offense, he can score for you, but he needs somebody to run that second unit, because I
think it'd be a terrible fit, but they don't have enough to package for Kawhi, do they?
Nah, I don't. Nah, and this is what I was going back to. I think Kawhi at this point wants to, like, he's got the hardware already, so he just wants to put up numbers, and he doesn't want to play with LeBron, it sounds like. Yeah, he wants to be the reason. Someone called it a Kobe complex, or a Kobe complex, where you want to be responsible for why a team wins or loses. So they say this about Kyrie. He's got a Kobe complex where he wants to be responsible for why a team wins or loses. So he wants to have his thumbprint on everything. And they said, and so I think Kawhi might be. I think that might be kind of what he's searching for. That's why he doesn't want to play with. I think he wants to go to LA.
Which I respect that.
Yeah,
I respect that. Like that they want to be the reason. Like,
sure. It is
easier to say it after you have a ship already, but
exactly,
I still like it. Those are my favorite players.
Wait, he would have been that in Spurs. He'd have been that in the Spurs. Like, that's not LaMarcus's team. That's Kawhi's team.
Well, you're not counting the relationships that have been damaged over that injury and them calling him out and all that stuff. I mean, and it sounds like he wants to be in a big market. He wants to be a star.
Yeah, I've never heard that dude talk.
Me neither. I couldn't believe that when I heard that, because you heard all these stories about him like driving a 1996 Honda into the games and not caring about anything, and now all of a sudden he wants to be Showtime.
Well, people are probably looking at him like, it's a lot of money to get. He spent I think 2 years in college. He's getting up there. He's not getting up in age. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to say that. But before long, he could be in year 10. You know, like really quick, he could be in year 10. And then as soon as you get in year 10, unless you are a freak and, you know, you figure it out, people just assume that your game is falling off. So it's like you're in year 10. Now the opportunity to get this long-term money or the big contract and all that stuff could be gone. And he could have been a guy that was like if you want to be Tim Duncan, fine. But everybody in his circle has to be cool with him being Tim Duncan. I don't think there was a lot of people in Tim Duncan's circle. So Tim Duncan was able to be Tim Duncan because he didn't have a lot of people that he was kind of playing hooping for. But if your uncle is a part of the equation and, you know, y'all thinking about, well, what else can we do with this career? It's kind of like, bro, you got to giddy up and you got to make some money. You got to get out there. You got to show you got to show everybody you can sell shoes and, you know, all that other jazz. So that might be the reason why he's kind of going after this versus just doing what he's been doing and, you know, doing the humble act and just kind of kicking butt without saying anything.
It'll be interesting when he has to talk because, I mean, if he goes to L.A., you're not going to hide in the corner when the press comes in the locker room.
And it's still La La Land. Like the Staples Center is still shared by both the Lakers and the Clippers. And with LeBron in the building, they're going to get precedent. Like all of what the Clippers have done to gain access and gain leverage over the Lakers, it's about to be erased.
Oh yeah.
So
it's done.
So he better bring it like on the court, off the court, personality, play, wins. He's got to really bring it. And the fact that he said he didn't want to play with LeBron, which I don't have any doubt that he can't do this, but now he got to bring it against LeBron in order to at least keep things neutral. Which if he can't bring it, because LeBron's going to bring it. Like LeBron's about to go crazy.
You think so?
The narrative is going to move in his favor. If he can get this team from not being in the playoffs to a 4th or 5th seed, do you believe they'll be that good? Oh, you never know. It all depends on if Ingram's still there. He's going to make Ingram better. He's going to make everybody there better. He's going to make everybody else's job easier too. But we don't know. I think there's a good chance that Lonzo ends up being moved, and there's a chance that, because look, all of LeBron's help, his quote unquote help, is disappearing. Paul George is already locked up. Kawhi doesn't want to be there. Those are the two guys that are supposed to go there. So now they got to find a way to get. They got to pay some money. They got to pay some money or trade somebody in order to get somebody to help him, because now the Lakers look a lot like the Cavaliers in terms of
but younger and more talented.
Really, it's just Ingram.
Well, but Kuzma's good.
Kuzma's good. We got to see what he does year 2.
But think about who the Lakers would be in the East.
Oh, they'd be at least in the Eastern Conference Finals.
But I mean, without LeBron. If
you think
so? If you have the Cavs without LeBron and the Lakers without LeBron in the East, the Lakers will finish ahead of the Cavs.
I got to see what Kuzma does, man. The second go around.
I think Kuzma can hoop, and I think he's one of those players that you're like, okay, maybe staying in college a few years does work. You know?
Sure.
Because that dude can play, man, and I think they'll be all right, but I don't think they'll be the 3 seed in the West.
No, they won't be that good.
I think they're gonna have a hard time making the playoffs. Like, I'm not saying that they won't, but you look at like LeBron, like the Cavs last year, they won like 50 some games, 51, sure. 52.
Yeah.
I don't think that they can win that many in the West with this roster. Unless LeBron like goes bonkers, like you said, but like LeBron doesn't like to do that for 82 games. LeBron doesn't play any defense in the regular season.
Yeah, but they in La La Land, bro. It's gonna be
It's gonna be interesting.
We got 19 seconds. We did a pretty good job. We talked about 2 things for 19 seconds. We're gonna have to do another one. I gotta take Marv to see Uncle Drew, but I'm gonna let you go. We got 4 seconds. I'm gonna wrap with you soon, man, and we'll get after it again.